That's at Freshly Pressed 981, where we pretty much just go in depth to the headline stories and, of course, a news bulletin making the rounds today. Joining us live in the studio, first of all, before I make the introductions, I'd like to say my name first. My name is Judith TV.
Yeah, and I'm Lakumi. We're both hosting the show this morning.
Yes, we are
Good
joining.
stuff.
Yeah. Joining us today, our guest in the studio are, of course, the Silver Fox, as I like to call him, the Ever Dapper. Ugodre. Ugodre, good morning to you.
Morning, everyone. Wish I can get. Anytime you say this, just $1 million just drops in my
You deserve
pocket.
You
it.
deserve it.
And yes, we also have a second time in the studio, right? Chike is in the studio with us. Good morning, Chike.
Yeah, good morning, Lagos.
All right.
Good morning to you too.
Is Lagos ready? You should send us messages. Join in the conversation. Send us your view on every story. Send a message to WhatsApp. It is 0809 444 I'll take it again, 0809 444 That's the number to send a WhatsApp message to.
You can also go onto YouTube. We're streaming live on YouTube at Smooth981 on YouTube. That's at Smooth981 on YouTube. Let's get started, shall we?
Yes, I'll go to Ugo for this story. It says, this is from Premium Times. FEC approves 1.8 billion naira for regulatory system to checkmate criminals in the telecoms sector. What do you make of this? Is this good news?
um, it sounds like it's. I mean, when you hear, when you read the headline, sounds a little bit, esoteric for a lot of people trying to wonder what this means. What are you spending 1.8 billion naira, on a regulatory system to checkmate criminals? I mean,
Yeah,
in
to
telecom
put
sector.
this to
Yeah.
put
So
this according to Issa Pantami, he actually says that the system will assist the Nigerian Communication Commission (NCC) to monitor, detect, and block box traffic being used for dubious or suspicious transactions.
yeah, correct. So basically, the sim box traffic or fraud around box traffic is basically where people who make international calls,
Yeah.
maybe you're trying to make an international call from the US to Nigeria or Nigeria to the US, and if you notice, sometimes when you get these calls, often appears on what appears on your screen are local numbers like Nigerian numbers, but then when you pick the call, it's an international call, and you're wondering how come it's an international call, and what's terminating it? It's a local number. So that's actually a SIM box fraud, and I think it's something that occurs often, not just in Nigeria, across the globe. And for the government and telecom operators, that's massive loss of revenue. I think I was reading a report somewhere, which suggests about 28 or so, you know, $1 billion is lost to telecom fraud globally. And I
Yeah.
think 2.7 billion is lost to interconnect bypass, which is basically what this particular 1.8 billion regulatory system is meant to help solve.
Okay.
And if you're wondering how this concerns the government, of course, there's security issues, implications of not actually knowing, the sort of calls that are terminating on your network. And aside from that, and most importantly for the government, is actually revenue,
Okay.
right? So because a lot of tax, I mean, like I always say, follow the money, and then most times you understand why some things are being done. So for the government that is starved of tax revenue or that is aggressive about taxation, a lot of international calls that you see terminated into Nigeria, government earns, a lot of money from taxes, from
Okay.
taxing those. Now, international calls are very expensive. Now, so yes, this is why they're doing this. But then on the flip side, these days things are kind of changing. Yes, a lot of these guys, what they do is they buy a lot of SIM cards and then route those calls through voice over IP, and then somehow turn. But now, you have things like WhatsApp, Skype
Yeah.
and Teams, and people have better ways of communicating these days without going through the
Phone
regular
calls.
phone calls and all that. People make international calls on WhatsApp or Skype
So
or
do
whatever.
we need
So I
this to
don't
remove
know. I
this?
mean, I guess I don't have the data, so perhaps maybe there's still a lot of international calls going on, terminating like this. So even if we don't make use of it a lot in Nigeria, perhaps maybe outside Nigeria, calls coming into Nigeria from several other countries, perhaps the data supports this kind of request. But I'm just here to explain why they're doing this.
Yeah, and at least it covers. I hope that it covers something. We'll move on to the next story.
Yes, indeed. This one's from Punch newspaper. I'm coming to you, Chike, for this one. Finance bill makes TIN mandatory for all bank account holders. The Finance Bill 2021 has made it mandatory for commercial banks to demand the tax identification numbers from anyone who wishes to open an account with them. It also empowers banks to demand TIN from existing customers if they wish to continue to operate their accounts. Chike, is this a step in the right direction?
Basically, first of all, we have to understand that the finance bill, basically, I think the federal government, they are trying to make some reforms to be able to, basically with tax and, in terms of tax and economic reforms, you're able to support, revenue that they hope to use to, fund the budget. So that's what the finance bill is all about. So, coming from, as a follow-up to, the last recent that we talked about, where he was, you know, alluding to the fact that the regulatory, I mean, the 1.8 billion is all about revenue. So, the introduction of making TIN number, that's tax identification number, mandatory for bank account holders is all about, it's all about revenue. Government trying to bring everybody into the tax net, because there's this belief that almost everybody, bank accounts, that's one of the most credible places to be able to get across to the whole of Nigeria, because most people will want to have bank account there. So, but on the flip side, there is there is this it is hope that this is not going to discourage the
The unbankable to become
exactly
unbanked.
discourage the financial inclusion which the federal government and the CBN they're trying to drive.
So hard to do.
Because basically most of the people in the informal sector, I'm sure that the idea of the TIN number is to drag most people in the informal sector who are really government don't derive enough revenue from. Exactly, just trying to get across to them, but hope that will not scare them away also, from being unbanked, and then won't affect the financial inclusion. But by and large, I think it's something, if government they follow it up, introduce adequate measures to be able to know how to implement this, I think is a step in the right direction, because government, like everybody knows, has a revenue problem, and that's the major problem that government had. You have revenue problem, you need to fund infrastructure, you need to fund the health sector. We have a COVID response that they need to fund, so they need money, they need revenue. So these are some of the things that they need they need to do. So it's a step in the right direction. They need the revenue.
Do you think so, Ugo? Do you think
It was filled with that.
because I'm concerned about the fact that, like you said, the financial inclusion, that's actually
Yeah.
a major part that's a bit. Ugo, what do you think? You seem to have this.
The interesting thing is that it makes a good point. Yes, the government does need revenue, and in most countries, you are tied to bank account, your social security numbers, or
Yes.
some sort of identification number is tied to your bank account. And
Same
tax
with
payment,
your
because that's-
NIN
yeah,
at
it's
this
mandatory
point.
and all. So on paper it does make sense. But one thing he said that I think is important for everyone to understand is this should actually is actually targeted at the unbanked and those that are in the informal markets. So these are excuse me. So these are people that are not already in the banking system, and perhaps don't have companies that have TIN. So a lot of the people in the formal sector, whether you have a company, registered company, you already have a tax certification number, it's mandatory, and banks already ask for TIN as part of the KYC process. So while this might be good on paper for the informal sector, I really don't know how much they're going to attract, how much money, how much sign-ups or they're going to be able to attract incrementally going forward. But for those in the formal sector already, which is why I worry, if they don't see the informal people, it's the informal people they will keep attacking, and they keep coming after and after and after. So
That's an
that's
increment
just
in-
So rather than sort of widen the tax net, you're sort of deepening the existing tax net, like you're just milking as much as you can from the people that are even paying already. So that's just my concern. And you know how Nigeria is. That's what typically happens.
But ultimately, this may be progression for the nation. Okay, let's go to the next story. It says COVID-19, 3.5 million Nigerians fully vaccinated. This is from the National Primary Health Care Development Agency. They said this on Wednesday. And the agency also says that 66 million Nigerians had taken the first dose, while 3.5 million had been fully vaccinated against the virus. Ugo, what do you make of this?
So, like, I mean, this is very low vaccination rate.
Out of
That is
206.1
million people,
Yeah.
over 200 million people. If you read elsewhere, WHO also says that we're at 4% or something like that. But this looks like below that.
Okay.
So, and interestingly, you have 6.6 million Nigerians who have taken the first dose, and another 3.5. So you have about 2.5 or so, or is it 3 million or so left to take the
Yeah.
second dose. I hardly hear about boosters like you have, in most other countries. I was reading somewhere this morning that the Omicron or whatever virus, if the first and second dose of vaccines doesn't affect it.
Yeah,
That's
you take the third one.
Yeah, you need to take a booster, the third one.
It was one of the news we
Excuse
took
me.
on the news headline today. You should listen at 6:05 a.m. Continue.
Excuse me. All right, so that's the challenge. But for Nigeria, I think the reasons why we're having low vaccination rates are pretty clear. A lot of people don't believe, there's actually COVID-19 in Nigeria, especially people in the informal markets. Go there, they don't really think it happens. There's no form of social distancing or mask wearing. People just don't believe that it's still here, right? So it's difficult to tell them to leave their daily job to go and queue to get a vaccine. So I think what needs to happen is a mass, vaccination drive, which we really haven't seen. We've just seen snippets of maybe adverts on radio and in papers and in news platforms like this. But you really need a massive vaccination drive across the country. Leverage on religious bodies, leverage on universities and schools, leverage on workplaces, make sure that there are vaccine centers everywhere. In
Okay,
fact, you actually
vaccine
see more
centers.
of test centers than vaccine centers. Because test centers, that's where they ask for all the 50K and all that to do tests and blah, blah, blah. So you see them everywhere. But how many vaccination centers do you have around? So you need to see a lot more vaccination centers around the country. And people don't even know that if you walk to any of the local governments, you can actually take vaccines. They're everywhere. So you need a lot more publicity as well. That's where I think that we are lacking. And once you can have this everywhere across the country,
Yeah.
I think vaccination rates will rise. Nigerians typically react to things like this positively. It's just that you really need to bring it to the front burner. You have to bring it to their faces. And if you don't do that, we keep having low vaccination rates. The luck we have, if I can call it luck, is that we just haven't seen as much COVID-19 cases as you would see in other parts of the world. And maybe because some of these things are underreported, I don't know. But
Yeah, or
yeah,
maybe because we're not testing enough.
exactly. So you're not seeing it, but the fact is, if you want to be a country where you're not, God forbid the next variant doesn't come from Nigeria,
Yes.
or you're not one of those countries that you're blocked all the time or you're put on a list and blah blah. We need to increase the amount of vaccinations that we're having. Vaccination rate just has to go. We should be, the target is 70% and we're still at 3%.
Thank you.
We have a message here from Shegun, and he's reacting to the teen story that we took earlier. It says, while this teen thing might be a good idea, what justification does a government that is unwilling to show public accountability and engages in wastage in some of their expenditures have to say for themselves? And that's from Shegun there. Let's
Makes
move
a
on to
good
this
point.
story from the New Telegraph. And the headline reads, New legal year, CJN spits fire, says judiciary will no longer tolerate oppression, embarrassment again. The Chief of Justice of Nigeria, CJN, and that's Justice Tanko Muhammadu, has stressed that the judiciary will no longer tolerate any oppression or embarrassment of judges as recorded in the past. The CJN, who stated this at a special session marking the official commencement of the Supreme Court's 2021-2022 legal year in Abuja, said the judiciary got enough embarrassment from judicial officers and would not take kindly to repeat any ugly treatment from the law enforcement agencies. Addressing the 72 new senior advocates of Nigeria, SANS, sworn in as part of the event yesterday, the CJN warned them to watch their utterances, actions, and the company that they keep. Very wise words, I would say. But, Chike, your thoughts?
Wow, that was quite a fiery one.
Was it?
Well, yeah. Well, it's when he was saying there was one thread that I think I read somewhere there that he made. I laughed because I was wondering how he was going to implement that. Anyway, but I think on the more serious note, I think it's quite worrying that I think over a month or so after the incident happened, I don't think um, Nigerians have seen enough response from the federal government with respect to the invasion of the residence of a Supreme Court judge for absolutely no reason and was very unwarranted.
And by the Supreme Court judge, you made Mary Peter Odili, right,
Exactly,
on October
exactly.
29th.
That was, yeah, exactly. So very very unwarranted. And yeah, I know. I think if about 2 or 3 weeks ago there was I think some people were like there was a public would I say display or whatever of some people that were arrested. But up till now, Nigerians have not heard anything that have come out of it. And I think the investigative or rather the investigation process has, for me personally, I think has been quite slow. When you consider, the level of, the seriousness of what is involved. I don't think federal government is acting, speedily enough, because you can't it seems like the judiciary have become the weakest arm of government, because you find out that the executive, of course, they have they have the political will to be able to go through, I mean, to be able to fight their battle. The Of course, those in the legislature who are also politicians can also do that as well too, but the judiciary have always been the whipping arm of government. And I don't think they've been getting enough protection from other arms of government. And this is a case in point. A Supreme Court judge's resident, and this is not the first time this has happened. It's been there has been cases like that. Supreme Court judge, federal high court judges, and I mean, sometimes I just feel a bit sad when I'm discussing stuff like that, because
Well, when things like this happen,
yeah.
what would be the way to go? I mean, this invasion, for
I
example,
mean,
what would have been the right thing the right move?
when you say you're investigating, the people that did this thing are not faceless people. You know them, people know them. I think by now we should have been getting a clear, like a clear direction where this thing is, heading to. Not just coming to display some people that you say that, oh, that you were arrested, that did that, conducted that raid,
Yes.
illegal raid, and then right now nothing has come out of it. I
So,
mean,
yeah.
some people, and I there is this conspiracy theory that that kind of high level raid could not have happened without you know some kind of tacit, whether direct or indirect government
Yes.
support, because nothing seems to be going on from the government side. It's just all rhetorics.
Okay.
So
Okay. All right. So let's just move on from allegations, and go further to address situations and matters. Tunde says, how do you force the account holders? That's speaking on the teen story. How do you force the account holders to provide teen before accessing banking services? How do you deal with students and unemployed and aged? How do you first ask for status? Do you first ask for status of the individual, or how is this supposed to work? He says. Let's move on to the next story. COVID-19, Nigerian government reacts as 1 million vaccine doses expire. Okay, this is from Premium Times. It says the Nigerian government has confirmed the report of the expiration of doses of vaccines supplied to the country, blaming the development on the short shelf lives of the vaccines. Now, the Sage Haranire, the minister, says that Okay, they actually, Reuters actually reports that there are 1 million doses that have wasted so far. That's what, at least
Yeah.
that's what we know. 1 million.
Well, wasted, expired. I mean,
Yeah.
you can interchange them. That's correct. I think the government has basically confirmed that there were vaccine wastages
Yes.
or expired vaccines. Even though if you read down the report, they also suggest it may not be up to a million, right? But
Okay.
it really doesn't matter whether it's a million, two, three, four. What the point is that vaccines have expired, and that sort of from what I mentioned
The
the last
previous
time. Yeah.
story, yes.
So you do these vaccines are not meant to last forever. They're not like your paracetamol or your regular drugs that can last for more years, right? So these things have very short shelf lives, and if you don't use them, they expire. It's just how it is, right? And it's not even. I think there was even a story. I think sometime earlier in the year, maybe about July or June or so, where I think I hope I'm correct, but about 450,000 vaccines expired as well across Africa.
Yes.
And it's not only an African problem. Before we start to say, hey, black man issues, it happens across the world as well. So where you have vaccines that have short shelf
Shelf
lives,
lives.
they do expire. And that's why I said, it's the job is not complete, when you have vaccines flown into the country and then you have maybe one or two centers open, and it's complete when you have all these vaccines used. And that's why I said you've got to be able to tie in, flying the vaccines in with, testing as
Yes.
well as, immunization, and making sure that there's a lot of awareness. Like, what's the point giving the vaccine? I mean, I do understand that some of the challenges they have is how you distribute these vaccines to, right?
Yes.
So because for you to distribute them or put them in places where they're going to be using to have it has to be some sort of facility that is equipped. So maybe that's why they're having challenges. But I think over the last few months, there's been, new technology and new ways of storing these vaccines and getting it distributed to nooks and crannies, around the world. So that's why I said the government has to be a bit more aggressive with the way that vaccines have been distributed across the country. Make sure that they are in churches, in mosques, in
Yeah.
schools, and places like. Just set up those kind of makeshift, locations where you can have these vaccines. Okay, or else we're going to keep having, a lot more vaccines. Destroys
Expire.
one
Yes.
million out of. I think we've only taken 6 million, 6 million or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're seeing that that's like less than 20% of the vaccines destroyed already. So yeah.
But we'll move on to a very somber note here. This the headline is from Premium Times. I'm coming to Chiki for this one. Lagos State government shuts down schools over death of students in fatal accident. Government schools around the Ojudu-Bega area of Lagos were shut down on Wednesday following a fatal accident which killed several students on Tuesday. Part of the schools shut Babs Fafunwa Millennium Junior Grammar School, Ojudu Junior Grammar School, and Ojudu High School, all within the same compound. Now, the spokesperson of the Lagos State Ministry of Education, as Ganiu Lawal, confirmed the closure of the schools, and he said that the schools have been closed down till the next session. So Chiki, knee-jerk reaction to what happened on
Exactly,
Tuesday?
exactly. I think it's a preemptive measure because there were reports that some of the students were already, they see that some of them have attacked some police stations, and were even, planning to do focus further, havoc, to what has happened. Um, Quite unfortunate anyway. But and some of them also, I think they're also writing exams at this critical time. So, and they're not going to reopen till January. But also that calls to question because I think there were, there are allegations that what caused the accident was that the driver was trying to run away from, I think, was it some FRSC or some traffic or not, some road safety officials or so, or vehicle inspection officials, and then, you know of course, ran into those students. So I think it just calls to question sometimes the modus operandi of some of these officers, because I think Lagos, if you want to make Lagos a smart city, I think there are, some of these your enforcement agencies. I think some of the ways they operate, their modes of operation. I think there are some of the things as well too you need to review, because sometimes standing on the road, causing traffic, Of course, you know that Lagosians sometimes they will also want to, they are deviant, so you want to stop them. They want to be reckless. So I feel that, I feel that there are better ways. Some of them called standing on the road and then stopping people and then running
After a
sometimes,
loaded
and
truck or
sometimes
trailer,
sometimes they even jump into a moving
trailer and try
vehicle
to make the
and
car
try to
stop.
remove the key. So I think these are some of the things that their modes of operation that they need to kind of review. You want to make Lagos a smart city. I think the way you do operate, carry out some of these operational things, you need to like
Innovative, smart
exactly,
moves.
exactly. These are some of the things you do. I mean, you're talking about CCTV camera. You want to have CCTV cameras,
Cameras. How are you
and
going to
then
survey it? How are you going to
exactly, and then
surveillance?
you want like if you have your, what do you call it, there's an identification number you have on your on your car. Once you have once they put they put it into their, I think, the
System.
system or the
The
platform they
driver, the
have,
papers of the
they know
car would
whether
show
you're
up, know whether,
updated or
yeah.
not and know what you've done. So stopping people, searching, taking papers, I think that's one of the things they need to review to sometimes to prevent incidents, because this is not the first time incidents that are related to such operations have have occurred. So I think they need to
And
look
I
at some
and
of
I,
these.
I agree a lot because um, the other day I was seeing last mile officials trying to take off someone's
Key
deflate
from
someone's tires because the person was
Deflate
trying to get
someone's tires.
so you see all those kind of things, and you ask yourself, like, why do things like this ever happen
Yeah.
where you have so much technology, right? Like you said, CCTV cameras, we all have all this VIN and all sorts of registration information out there that you can actually use to catch culprit. In fact, a lot of people don't know Lagos State actually has a system today that I've forgotten that website. If you go to that website, you can actually see all the traffic offenses
Yeah.
that has accumulated under your car.
exactly.
They have it today.
So why?
So even all these traffic lights that we see that we bust sometimes and just go past, there is some of the traffic lights that have those hidden cameras already have you on record. It's there. So when you're now coming to pay for your renew your license and all, that's where they have you on hook, and then you have to pay for all the strike offenses,
Yeah.
and then they can even prosecute you as well. So I think they just need to better coordinate because, yes, the fault here, but there's always collateral damage. I mean, some of us watch movies and you see when they're after thieves and see what happens and how people drive. I mean, so we got to be very careful. And that is just such a painful incident, especially following what happened a week ago. With the young lad that died in a private school in Lagos.
Yeah.
So you now see students
Again,
here, and
2 days
parents just
after.
can't wait for schools to close. I mean, it's just too much.
Okay, moving on. Let's take a quick one from Ido Aziz. It's talking on a teen. He says, before the federal government comes up with this, have they put in place the basic necessity for Nigerians? Why would I invest in what I won't benefit from in the future? I would rather dig holes in my house and keep my money in it and forget keeping the money in the bank. And Dipo doesn't agree with you.
Yeah, Dipos comes here. He says, I don't agree with you that Nigeria don't believe there is no COVID, that there is COVID. The problem is that Nigerians believe there is a much bigger problem to deal with than COVID. We still have the problem of dealing with the deaths caused by malaria, dysentery, cholera, high poverty levels, or government negligence, or abandoned roads with huge potholes, he says. This last one here is from another Idowu from Lekki, and it goes, good morning, crew. Yesterday I was on Akisaya Street, which is besides the VIO premises, and there was a strong police presence and foul smell of tear gas. Most security and law enforcement agencies needs reorientation and restraining on handling crisis. Tear gas in a residential area that has hospitals. My goodness.
Okay.
And that's pretty much from him. They're pretty much out of time at the moment. But
Yes.
guys, thank you so much for coming. You to all to Godre and Chiki. Thank you so much for coming.
You're
And
welcome.
we're going into Lagos Talks. It is, you should join us at 8:10 a.m. prompt. We would open the phone line so that you can share your views. Call us on 0144-89981. Ugo is at Ugo Dre on social media, and Chike doesn't want to reveal his own. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us as we move on to Lagos Talks.